Hi everybody and welcome to Heel Heat. My name is George Coles, and on this episode we're making predictions for 2025. Now this is just for fun. Most of these are going to be wrong. If you go back to my predictions for 2024, the success rate's not that great, probably about 50%. If you go back to any of my predictions, you're probably going to see about the same thing. This is not anything that's informed judgment. This is my guess based on where I see storylines going, what I think companies are going to do going forward. With that being said, let's jump right in and start where we always start, at Wrestle Kingdom, January 4th. I think that New Japan's going to pull the trigger and have Shota Umino beat Zack Sabre Jr. for the IWGP World Championship. Even though he's not got the reaction I think they want, I think they're going to want to smash him over. And I think they have a plan, and I think they're going to run with it. I know that they want to create new stars because they've lost so many of their stars over the past few years. So they want to bring guys like Umino, Yota Tsuji, Uemura, Gabe Kidd, and have them come into that main event level. I think Umino is the first one that wins the championship. I'm a fan of his. Yes, I do think it's been a little lackluster, but I still think they're going to pull the trigger. I think they're going to give him the big win. And I actually think that during this, he's going to turn heel at some point. I hope they don't stick him with Bullet Club. I don't think he's a fit there. Maybe as the leader of Chaos, maybe reinvigorating Chaos, that might be a thing, and turning them heel again, but I digress. Next up, just 2 days later, on Monday Night Raw's debut on Netflix, I think we're going to see the return of two wrestlers, John Cena and Charlotte. I think they're both going to come out for the first show on Netflix. I think they're going to make the show a very stacked show. They've already had announced a tribal combat match with Solo Sikoa and Roman Reigns. I think there's going to be at least one title change there. I don't know what title's going to change, but some title's going to change on that show. They're going to want to come out the gates swinging so they get that report that they were the top stream thing on Netflix for that week, and maybe the top stream thing of all time. So yeah, I see John Cena and Charlotte Flair both coming back on the Netflix debut. Now just a bit later in February, we're going to go to the Royal Rumble. I'm going to pick my two winners for the men's and women's Rumble. For the women's, I think Io Sky is going to win it. This recent little run that she's had, and at the time of the taping, she just lost to Liv last night at Saturday Night's Main Event, but I think that they've seen something with the way the crowd connects to her. And I think the match for Io at Mania should be her and Rhea Ripley. I think that would be a great match. They've kind of teased that a bit. Maybe they'll do a three-way with Io, Liv, and Rhea. But I do think that they're going to have her win the Rumble. I think the reaction she's got has put her into that spot, which I think is going to be great for her, and I think it's going to get big things for Io Sky. And on the men's side, I think Roman Reigns is going to win the Royal Rumble, and the reasoning for that is, I think once he wins, you're going to see CM Punk come out on the stage, and that's how the Royal Rumble is going to go off the air. And then of course, what's the favor CM Punk wanted? What's the one thing that CM Punk has wanted his whole career? The main event of WrestleMania. He cashes in his favor. He asks Roman Reigns to give him the main event that he wants, which leads us into it. Let's talk about it since we're there. 3 matches I think that are going to happen at WrestleMania. Cody Rhodes versus John Cena, whether it's for the world title or not, or the Universal title. I'm going to call both titles the world title because I always do. I think this is a great match, and I don't necessarily think this is a match that's going to be the main event. I think this is maybe going to be the opener of one of the 2 nights, depending on what happens. But I do think it happens. I do think we see it. It'll be a fun match for Cena's retirement tour, and maybe he even beats Cody there and ties Ric Flair's record. Who knows? The next match I definitely see happen at WrestleMania. Well, I wouldn't say definitely. This is all predicated by if The Rock is going to be there or not and how much he's going to be involved. I think we finally get The Rock versus Roman Reigns as the Night 2 main event with no title involved, just the Ulafalo involved, which we found means a lot more to Roman Reigns and to the Bloodline story than any title does. So I think that's going to be for the ultimate tribal chief role or the final boss role. I don't know which is higher in the pecking order. I guess the final boss is. But when he was there last year, he kind of put his one up for Roman. So either way, I think we finally get the Rock and Roman match. I think it's the night 2 main event, which leads us to our night 1 main event. Remember I said that CM Punk would call in his favor to have Roman Reigns give him the title shot. I think the night 1 main event is Gunther versus CM Punk for that world title. And I could easily see Punk winning, and we're going to talk about something a little bit later that I think may happen as early as WrestleMania, but we'll talk about it when we get there. I do think he gets at least one of the night's main events at WrestleMania. If he's healthy this year, I think they want to get that out of the way so that's not always the floating thing, the thing that is out there that everybody speculates, is this going to be Punk's year? They're just going to get it out of the way. And not saying that he doesn't deserve it. He's had a phenomenal 2024. From every report we're hearing, he's been very positive backstage and very helpful, which is amazing. I think this is a match that's going to happen. Now, again, like I said, most likely most of these predictions are going to be. Next up, let's swing over to AEW. We haven't talked about them yet. I think the Jon Moxley Death Rider storyline leads to inevitable comeback and fight for their company and become faces again of the Elite. And I'm not talking about the Elite with Okada and Jack Perry. I think Jack Perry and Okada split off. We get the actual Elite, the Young Bucks, Hangman Adam Page, and Kenny Omega. We already know that Kenny Omega is making his return to wrestling on January 5th for the crossover card, Wrestle Dynasty, that's New Japan, Stardom, CMLL, and AEW co-promoted, so we know he could go. I think this all works, especially how we've seen Hangman kind of being in there in the mix with the Death Riders, but not really picking a side just yet. I think this all works out. They turn out to be the baby faces that go after that. If not, I could easily see, and kind of for me, what I think would be more interesting is Tony Khan going to MVP and saying, MVP, I've lost control of my company. I need your help. I want to hire the Hurt Syndicate. I want you guys to stop the Death Riders. I don't think that's going to be happening. To me, it's a more interesting story. I think the Hurt Syndicate is amazing, and I think if you keep pushing them the way that they've always should have been pushed, even in WWE, you have a top-level either heel or face faction. They're all fantastic at what they do. The resurgence of Shelton Benjamin in AEW has been amazing, reminding people just how great he is. So yeah, I'd like to see that, but I think that the way they're going and the way it looks to be set up is the Elite reforming to take out the Death Riders. Now, staying in AEW, I think that both Darby Allin and Bobby Lashley are going to win the World Championship at some point this year. Whether it be the Elite coming out to nullify the Death Riders so Darby could beat Moxley, or Lashley beating Moxley at some point, or Lashley beating Darby, which is a match I want to see. I want to see Bobby Lashley and Darby Allin. I think the way that Darby works combined with Lashley's raw athleticism, I think they could put on an amazing story there. But I digress. I think both of these men are going to be world champions by the time the end of the year happens. I'd love to see it. Now going back over to NXT, I think there's going to be 2 definite call-ups and maybe a third. I think Trick Williams and Roxanne Perez are both getting called up this year. Both maybe as early as the Netflix show or the Royal Rumble. I don't think we go into the summer with either of these wrestlers being on the NXT roster. They've both done everything you could do there. If they really wanted to make a splash and they really wanted to do something special, they would bring Trick into the Royal Rumble as the NXT champion and have him win the Royal Rumble. How crazy would that be? They're not going to do that. That's why it's not even part of my prediction. But at some point, they have to do something like that. They have to do a story like that where a guy comes out of nowhere, comes from NXT, and gets the immediate Royal Rumble win and gets the immediate main event. I think that'd be an awesome story, and Trick's a guy that could pull it off. I could also see Obafemi being called up this year. I do think he's going to be used as the main level guy once Trick Williams goes to the main roster, so I could see Obafemi kind of taking that role until someone else takes it from Obafemi. But definitely Trick and Roxanne are going to get pulled up. I think they're both going to go there, and I think they're both going to have amazing careers. Now, going back to something I kind of mentioned a bit ago, CM Punk. I definitely think that this is a year that CM Punk has a heel turn. Whether it be asking for that favor for Roman Reigns that turns him, or him turning on Roman Reigns at some point, making Roman the ultimate sympathetic babyface. I think there's going to be something there with Roman and Paul Heyman and them being a heel. He's a more interesting character to me as a heel than he is. I love everybody shaking hands, CM Punk. Just my opinion. I think he's going to turn heel this year. Next up, we haven't mentioned him yet, so TNA. TNA is just going to survive. They can do anything. It doesn't matter good, bad. They can have the best year in TNA history, the worst year in TNA history, the greatest ratings, the worst ratings, the best decisions, the worst decisions. They can bring back Russo. They could have Tessa Blanchard win every single match this year and lean into her racist gimmick and have her wearing swastikas, and they would still survive. TNA is a cockroach. They're never going to go away, no matter what they do, good or bad. I'd love to see them be good, and yes, they've been rather good, and I hope Tessa's redemption arc is really good. Tessa Blanchard, peeling back a little bit, is someone, when I used to work on a podcast called Live from the Armory, it's someone we had on the show a few different times. She was always nice. She was always engaging. She was always willing to talk to us and willing to be part of the show. And when her stuff came out, the racism allegations, the bullying allegations, I kind of hoped we'd get a redemption arc for her just because of the person that I dealt with, that we dealt with on the show. I thought she was a good person that may have just went down a bad path. And in America, we love a good redemption story, but anyway, I digress. TNA is going to survive, no matter what they do. They could have a live execution and they'd still survive. I mean, it's TNA. It's a cockroaches wrestling. And I mean that in a positive way. At this point, TNA has survived longer than WCW and ECW combined. And I'm not talking about Jim Crockett Promotions just when it turned to WCW. How crazy is that? I digress. Another company that seems to still be on life support that may or may not go away, but I think this is finally the year Ring of Honor gets a TV show. Whether Tony Khan works out something with Warner Brothers to put them on one of their smaller channels like True TV or one of the other 50 channels that Warner Brothers Discovery owns, or it's just something that's a Max exclusive for extra content. I think Ring of Honor gets something of a TV deal, and I think they pitch it to them as cheap. They could do the tapings at the same time they do the AEW tapings. They have another show. Use it as somewhat a farm league, which they kind of have been. But I think this is the year Ring of Honor gets a TV deal. And basically, those are my predictions for 2025. Things that I think are going to happen. Some of them maybe a little bit out there. Some of them I think are within the realm of possibility. I don't know, I might be crazy all the way. Let me know what you think. Do you like my predictions? What's your predictions for 2025? What do you think is going to happen? Not what you like to see happen, what you think is going to happen. Because we all know in pro wrestling, what you want to happen isn't always what happens. Let me know your predictions down here in the comments. With all that being said, my name is George Coles, and you've been watching Heel Heat.